What if the architect of back-to-back World Cup victories is taking a gamble so audacious that it could either cement South Africa as rugby's greatest dynasty or unravel everything he's built? Rassie Erasmus isn't just managing the Springboks anymore. He's conducting an experiment that has every rugby nation watching with equal parts fascination and skepticism. While other countries desperately try to keep their stars at home, offering bigger contracts and loyalty bonuses, Rassie is doing something that sounds completely backwards. He's actively encouraging his best players to leave for Europe. And that's just the beginning of a plan so unconventional that even his supporters admit it sounds insane when you first hear it. This isn't about the next season or even the next World Cup. This is about the next decade of South African rugby, and the blueprint being drawn right now could revolutionize the sport forever. Or it could become the cautionary tale that coaches study for generations, wondering where it all went wrong. The question everyone's asking is simple. Is Rassie Erasmus a visionary genius who sees 10 moves ahead, or has success made him overconfident in a strategy that defies every conventional wisdom in professional rugby? Because make no mistake, what's happening in South African rugby right now has never been attempted at this scale. Not by the All Blacks during their dynasty years, not by England when they dominated the North, not by Australia in their golden era. This is genuinely uncharted territory, and we're all watching it unfold in real time. The stakes couldn't be higher. South Africa just won their second consecutive World Cup, something that hasn't been done since the turn of the century. They're at the peak of their powers, with a squad full of world-class talent and a coaching setup that other nations are desperately trying to copy. This should be the moment to consolidate, to keep everything together, to ride this wave for as long as possible. Instead, Rassie is blowing it all up and starting from scratch. Well, not quite from scratch, but you'll see what I mean. So let's break down exactly what this 10-year plan involves, why it might be the smartest thing anyone's ever done in rugby, and why it could also be the biggest mistake in Springbok history. Here's where the story gets properly interesting. South Africa Rugby openly admits they cannot compete financially with European clubs. We're talking about French clubs backed by billionaires, English Premiership teams with massive broadcast deals, and Japanese leagues offering contracts that make even established internationals' eyes water. The traditional response would be to fight this exodus, to try matching salaries to create incentives for players to stay. New Zealand tried it, Australia's still trying it, both are hemorrhaging talent anyway. Rassie looked at this losing battle and said something nobody expected. He said, use it, instead of fighting the financial reality, make it work for you. Let the European clubs pay the enormous salaries, let them handle the costs of housing world-class players. Let them deal with the medical bills and the insurance and all the overhead that comes with professional athletes. Meanwhile, South Africa Rugby redirects that money into youth development, into coaching infrastructure, into building the next generation. It's financial judo, using your opponent's strength against them, but it only works if you can maintain international competitiveness, while your best players are scattered across 3 continents. And that's where the real gamble begins. Because Rassie isn't just accepting player exodus as an unfortunate reality, he's weaponizing it. In 2024, the Springboks used 50 different players. 50. That's not squad rotation. That's not managing workload. That's a complete philosophical shift in how you build an international rugby program. Most teams try to establish their best 15, maybe their best 23, and stick with them as much as possible. Build combinations, develop understanding, create the kind of intuitive teamwork that only comes from playing together repeatedly. Rassie's doing the opposite. He's deliberately creating a system where no position has an unquestioned starter, where form and fitness matter more than reputation, where a young player can debut against a major nation and be expected to perform immediately. The goal is staggering in its ambition. By 2027, Rassie wants every single player in his squad to have at least 15 international caps. Not 15 caps sitting on the bench, 15 caps of meaningful experience against top-tier opposition. If he pulls this off, South Africa will go into the next World Cup with a squad where everyone has been tested at the highest level, where injuries don't derail campaigns because the replacement is almost as experienced as the starter, where tactical changes don't require compromises because every player understands the system completely. Now let's talk about something that sounds like a conspiracy theory but is absolutely happening. Rassie's coaches keep leaving for prestigious European jobs, spending time embedded in foreign systems, and then mysteriously returning to South Africa. Felix Jones left for England, learned their attacking structures, came back. Jacques Nienaber went to Leinster, absorbed their defensive philosophy. Might return. Andy Edwards spent time with Ireland, one of the most innovative teams in world rugby, then rejoined the Springboks setup. Think about it. You send your brightest coaching minds into the heart of your rival's operation. They learn the cutting-edge tactics, the training methods, the strategic innovations that these wealthy clubs and nations are developing. Then they bring all that knowledge back home, where South Africa integrates it into their system, while maintaining their traditional strengths. It's like open-source software development, except you're building the ultimate rugby program by borrowing the best ideas from everywhere. And the beauty is, it's completely legal. Coaches move around all the time. Nobody can accuse you of anything unethical, but the strategic advantage is enormous if you're coordinating it properly. The results speak for themselves. And this is where Rassie's supporters have the strongest argument. Back-to-back World Cups, back-to-back Rugby Championship titles, a winning record against every major rugby nation. The famous 7-1 bench split that everyone mocked as insane. Now half the rugby world is copying it. The Springbok scrum that demolished everyone. That came from systematic analysis and innovation, not just traditional power. The defensive system that frustrated the best attacking teams in the world. That's been refined and improved continuously. And then there's the technology angle. Rassie developed something called Outfox, a training tool that works like a video game, allowing players to practice decision-making and pattern recognition. It's the kind of marginal gain that seems small until you realize that split-second decisions in rugby make the difference between winning and losing. Everything Rassie has touched has turned to gold so far. His innovations become industry standard within a year or two. His tactical adjustments get copied by international teams and club sides alike. He inherited a Springbok program in crisis in 2018 and turned it into the most dominant force in world rugby. So when he says he has a 10-year plan, you'd be foolish not to take it seriously. The man has earned credibility that few coaches in rugby history can match.
Yet here's the uncomfortable truth that keeps people up at night.
This entire brilliant strategy is built on some very shaky foundations, and if any of them crumble, the whole thing could collapse. Let's start with the most obvious problem. By 2027, the core of South Africa's current dominance will be in their mid-30s. Eben Etzebeth, the giant who's been the cornerstone of their pack, Pieter-Steph du Toit, arguably the best forward in world rugby, Siya Kolisi, the captain who provides leadership that goes beyond just rugby skills. These aren't just good players who can be replaced by equally talented younger ones. These are generational talents with leadership qualities and experience that you cannot replicate, no matter how many caps you give younger players. Rassie himself admits this is a problem he can't solve by decree. He can't force players into retirement if they're still performing at the highest level, but he also can't build for the future while relying on players who might decline suddenly. It's a tightrope walk, and one injury or one bad season could make all his depth building irrelevant if he suddenly needs his old guard to carry the team one more time. Then there's the chemistry problem. Rugby isn't just about having 15 talented individuals. It's about combinations, understanding, the kind of intuitive teamwork where a player knows what his teammate will do before he does it. You build that through repetition, through playing together in high-pressure situations, through developing trust over time. How do you create that when your lineup changes significantly from match to match? Your loose forward balance shifts. In theory, this creates adaptability and resilience. In practice, it might create a team that's good at everything but great at nothing. A team that can beat anyone on their day, but also lose to anyone if the combinations aren't clicking. And you won't know which one you have until the pressure is at its highest. Let's address something else that nobody's talking about enough. The Rugby Championship, the cornerstone of Southern Hemisphere rugby, is on indefinite hiatus. The only confirmed tournament for 2026 is something called the Greatest Rivalry, a series against New Zealand. Beyond that, the international calendar is in flux. World Rugby is discussing new formats, new competitions, new structures that could completely change how international rugby operates. Rassie's building his entire strategy around having regular meaningful test matches to develop his 50-player rotation system. But what happens if the test calendar contracts? What if there are fewer opportunities to give players experience? What if the new World Rugby structure emphasizes fewer, higher-stakes matches instead of the regular programming he's relying on? His entire depth-building strategy requires a constant stream of international rugby. If that dries up or changes formats significantly, the 10-year plan might be obsolete before it's halfway complete. Who's right in this debate? Let's hear from both sides properly. The believers say this is exactly what sustained excellence looks like. You don't maintain dominance by standing still. You don't keep winning by doing what worked before. Rassie is playing a completely different game than everyone else, thinking in decades while his rivals think in World Cup cycles. The proof is undeniable. 2 World Cups. Dominant performances against the best teams in the world. A production line of talent that just keeps coming. Young players like Kane Moody getting thrown into massive test matches and thriving. Sacha, Feinberg-Mngomezulu, barely out of school playing fly half against New Zealand. This isn't reckless. This is calculated brilliance. The 2027 World Cup squad will be the most battle-tested, deeply prepared team in rugby history. Every player will have been in pressure situations. Every combination will have been tested. There will be no unknown quantities, no panic when injuries hit. Here's what we know for certain. The 2025 campaign becomes absolutely critical for validating or disproving this strategy. South Africa has 15 test matches scheduled, facing teams across the spectrum from developing nations to established powers. If the Springboks maintain their dominance while continuing the aggressive rotation policy, the skeptics will have to admit the system works. If they stumble, if the lack of settled combinations cost them matches, the questions will get much louder. The outside center position battle between Jesse Kriel, Kane Moody and emerging talents will be particularly telling. Can competition for places create excellence, or does it create uncertainty?
Rassie Erasmus has earned the right to take this gamble. He inherited a broken program in 2018 and delivered 2 World Cups by 2023. His innovations have changed rugby permanently. His players trust him completely, following his strategies even when they seem counterintuitive. Siya Kolisi said it perfectly. The man is always 5 or 10 steps ahead of everyone else. When you have that track record, you get to try the impossible. And maybe that's what makes this story so compelling. We're watching someone attempt something that might be impossible, backed by a track record that suggests maybe impossible doesn't apply to him. The next few years will answer a question that goes beyond rugby tactics and strategies. Can one person genuinely revolutionize a sport through sheer vision and conviction? Can systematic planning and ruthless execution overcome the traditional wisdom built over more than a century of international rugby? Or are there limits to what even genius can achieve? Constraints that eventually catch up with everyone regardless of past success.
So will this 10-year plan destroy the Springboks or make history? The honest answer is we don't know yet. But we're going to find out, and that journey is worth watching regardless of the destination. Because this is bigger than one team or one coach. This is about whether the future of international rugby belongs to those brave enough to completely rethink how it's done. Rassie Erasmus is betting his legacy that the answer is yes. And given what he's already accomplished, that's not a bet anyone should take lightly. The revolution is happening now. The only question is whether it succeeds or becomes the most spectacular failure in modern rugby history. Either way, we'll be talking about this for decades.